Hey everyone, Aaron McLaren here with Evan Langford hanging out on the beach, and today's video is going to be all about launching your kite with confidence. So stay tuned and we'll have some pro tips for you. All right, with this video being all about launching a kite, right? Let's just face it, it's going to be intimidating. We always tell our students that's the most intimidating part about our lessons. Our lessons are not just about going out and riding, it's how to get you off the beach safely, right? And practice makes perfect. So this video is going to help you with that, right? Let's talk about one thing. One thing in general is the location. You got to know the location, you got to know the wind speed, the wind direction, right? And we're going to go over that here in a second on just how to look at those details. All right, so you're ready to launch your kite, right? And what I've seen all throughout the years is that as a new rider, a lot of those riders actually select somebody that's also new to help them out. That newer rider is also looking for anybody to help them, right? Well, why not be a little bit more selective and find somebody that knows what they're doing by just observing on the beach and seeing who's the best rider or who's the best candidate to help you get off that beach successful. All right, so you've selected that rider to launch you from the beach, right? Why not break the ice and tell them the level of rider that you are? That level of riding could be at beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Tell them where you're at so they're more confident in your abilities, right? If you're a beginner, why not take that kite and move it right to the edge of the beach so that you, as the rider, can be out in the water away from any obstructions, right? Cars, kites, other gear, or pedestrians, walkers on the beach, right? So make sure that you're selecting a good rider to help you out, and also the location being out and away from everybody else. So now you're ready to launch, but now you have to understand where the wind is coming from. What I always teach my students is that you can simply look at the kites on the beach, and typically that center strut is going to be a nice arrow, an arrow into the breeze. You can also look at, birds, they always sit in the breeze. You can look at flags, you can look at kites up in the sky, you can look at all those different factors. And this video isn't about that. What it is about is selecting the right location, the angle of which that kite should be for where you should be standing right before you give that thumbs up and that launcher releases the kite. What you can do is put your back to the wind, extend those arms out, make sure that you're looking straight downwind, okay? And when you do so, extend those arms out, look off into the distance at something. Point at that location, find something out on the horizon, and that's where you'll be walking towards to position yourself perfectly on the edge of that wind window. All right, so Evan is obviously an experienced rider, and we're using him as our student today, and we're gonna go over what I just kind of talked about. That's about positioning yourself perfectly on the edge of the wind window. Now, I was saying, like, put your back to the wind and extend your arms out, and when I point, I'm looking at something off in the direction, all right? And what happens is that you know which way to go, but you actually don't walk there because you got lines, you're gonna be meandering like an alligator. I want you to know exactly where to walk off to. You can always pick out something on the horizon, all right? So arms out, look and point, and then so like right now, we kind of see the bridge off in the distance. So when we're stretching those lines out, we're gonna walk directly towards that bridge, right? So we're gonna have that as our line sight, all right? So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so you've just walked out to the edge of the wind window and you're ready to launch your kite. We wanna stop for 1 second. We wanna look down at our chicken loop, and what I say is 1, 2, 3. What you got there, right? So you have a chicken loop, that's 1. You have the chicken stick, that's 2. And then you have a leash, that's 3, all right? So 1, 2, 3. The reason why we want to check this over, well, you've already connected everything up there by the kite or whatever process you have, but now you've gotten over to the edge of the wind window, you're ready to launch your kite, you're trying to position yourself, and your chicken loop happens to come undone, gets loose like that, and well, guess what? I see it all the time. All that pressure is built up on the chicken stick, and next thing you know, it ejects on you, all right? So 1, 2, 3. Or possibly you forgot your leash, right? So it's a great check. Just remember 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 every time you're hooking up to your kite, all right? Next thing, I see this all the time, man. The lines, they're tangled, right? with the kite being on the edge of the beach and flapping around and everything, right? You're still in full control. And for you to untangle all these lines, I see this all the time. The rider's gonna sit here, they're trying to figure it all out, and like they can't. Or they think it's inverted or whatever the case may be, and then they have that launcher, put the kite back down, they have to restring their bar. Well, guess what? We don't have to do that. What we wanna do is add tension to those front lines, and we're gonna walk into the breeze because we started downwind, and as you see that canopy fill up, you'll see that we now have tension on all 4 lines. We're adding tension to just the middle lines where your chicken loop is, all right? As you walk into the breeze, a little further upwind from your kite, you'll see all the tension builds up. That launcher is not being overpowered. That's when we can simply unspin our bar and look at it. It's gonna be completely untangled. So stop trying to untangle your kite until you're in the perfect position. So here's a pro tip for you, right? As you get better and more experience with this, you're not the only person that can move. You can actually look up at your launcher and have them move upwind or downwind. So, hey Brooke, do you mind going upwind a little bit? So as you get more confident with this, you can start directing your launcher around. They're more than happy to do that for you. Also, as a rider, you have full control, not just that launcher, right? If that launcher is actually in position where possibly it's too much power on them, too much tension on the lines, you can simply just walk forward and that'll release the line tension, and now the launcher has full control over that kite. So if you position yourself wrong and you see that they're overpowered, walk towards them, release that tension on the lines, you can start over at that point, right? So because we've selected the perfect location for us to stand to make sure our lines get untangled, you can see that the canopy is slightly luffing. That's what we want to set up for success, right? As we see that canopy luffing, we have all of our lines untangled, our lines are taut, we're not grabbing hold of the bar, we are now going to walk into the breeze. So come on up, Bryn. And we want to maintain focus on the front lines. If we don't maintain focus on the front lines and we slacken them off, what ends up happening is the canopy won't fill in properly. The kite will be actually kind of wonky and not set you up for success. So both front lines need to have tension the full time. If you look at the canopy now, it's fully filled. We are now in position for a successful launch. So now we're ready to launch, right? We want to look over that 1, 2, 3 rule again. So chicken loop, chicken stick, leash. Then we also want to look at all of our lines, make sure we're properly powered, make sure our lines are untangled, and that launcher is in position. Everybody's on the same page. There's no question or possibly any confusion. And now what we're going to do is just use one hand. One hand operation is what I like to call it for launching and landing. One hand for launching and landing, right? And what I mean by this is literally go ahead and put your left hand on. What I see wrong all the time is that people pull the bar in like Evan's doing right now, right? And if they have 2 hands, they're even more susceptible to pulling that bar in, right? When we have just one hand on the bar, it makes it really easy to just slightly steer left and be less likely to pull that bar in and fully power it up, right? Now here's the thing, right? If we're teaching it in this manner, we want to make sure that the student, the rider, the person that's launching, is not going to be out of control when that kite gets about halfway up. So what I like to emphasize is that using one hand, you need to understand that once that kite releases from that rider or from that launcher, not to continue to steer left where you're going to get out of control and that right hand's not going to be available, or in this case, the right hand's not going to be available to correct that kite, okay? So what I like to start off by doing is as we give that thumbs up, we'll steer left, the kite will come up, and then we can simply let go if we have any issues. So we want to have in the mindset of like any issues, we let go. So now you're in position, the kite's on the edge of the window, your launcher's ready to go, you're feeling good about the whole scenario. Well, it's time to give that thumbs up, right? first thing we want to do is put that left hand in this situation, left hand on the bar. We want to make sure that we're dynamic. We want to move around the beach, okay, and not be a statue locked in one place, all right? So as soon as we give that thumbs up, not yet, but once we give that thumbs up, we want to make sure that you're ready to walk, okay? Walking into the breeze will always increase the wind speed. 1 mile an hour walking into the breeze, you got 1 more mile an hour of power, right? So you're ready to launch the kite, and maybe you're not in the exact position you need to be, or maybe the wind has subsided, it's lightened up a bit, and that kite's going to be super susceptible to backstall, especially if you're doing like what Evan's doing right now, and that's by sheeting in all the way, trying to add power. Here's where you have to be dynamic. You got to move around. Don't be a statue. So as you see, Evan's launching the kite doesn't have a lot of power. You can see that he can release that bar and just simply walk up into the breeze. As he walks up into the breeze, that increases the power on the kite, and guess what? Everybody's happier, and of course, that kite's much happier in the sky than tumbling down the beach. So what do we get from this? Be dynamic. Move around the beach, don't be a statue. All right, so let's talk about some things that we see. Number one thing we see is that when people are ready to launch their kite and maybe they need more power, they grab a hold of the bar with both hands, they sheet in, and possibly backstalling the kite, and it goes tumbling down the beach. The next thing we kind of see is that maybe somebody is oversteering the kite with just that one hand, and the kite itself will fall back into the window and start pulling you down the beach. So how to solve all that? Being dynamic, moving around the beach, moving into the breeze to increase the power, not just with your hand. All right. So the next thing we kind of see is when somebody is starting to steer the kite up and they oversteer the kite, and it will fall or tumble backwards into the wind window. And we certainly don't want that, because guess what happens? Once the kite goes into the wind window, you're gonna have more power than you can handle. All right, lastly, what we see is as that rider is launching the kite, they're starting to steer left and they start to steer aggressive, and the kite starts to go up to 12 o'clock. Well, guess what happens? That kite goes so fast up to 12 o'clock, it pulls you down the beach, and that right hand, your other hand, isn't available to actually counter steer the kite. And that's what we see most often happen in the worst case scenario. So you got to remember one thing in that situation is just by letting go will solve the problem in most cases. And remember, your extra hand is not just hanging around doing nothing. It is ready to react. Halfway up as you're launching that kite, you should have it ready to go to counter steer the kite. Remember, being dynamic on the beach, moving around on the beach is going to help tremendously. Your bar should not be where you're getting the power from. Your positioning on the beach is where you get your power from. All right, so in exiting on this video of launching, right, we had Evan really trying hard to display what most students or newer riders or any good rider does on the beach, right? Hopefully that you've taken our pro tips and you can utilize them and implement them into your own way of doing things. Everybody's a little different, and hopefully some of this you'll pick up and use, all right? So our key points here today is being dynamic. What I see most often is somebody statue-like, not moving. Be dynamic as that person launching their kite, okay? The next thing is making sure you're not ripping on the bar for power. Being dynamic will completely delete that whole habit or instinctual habit of pulling in on the bar. Additionally, selecting a really good location. This video, obviously, in our background, it was not the greatest display of that, okay? We had cars, we had people walking around and whatnot, and at our level of riding, maybe that lets us get away with that. But as a new rider, we want you to be out and in the water, away from all this obstruction, okay? So select a good rider to help you out. Get off the beach, make sure you select a good location, and really know that wind direction to set you up for success. If you guys have any questions at all, we're always here to help. If you're a previous student of ours, remember our instructors are always available on the beach to help you out, free of charge, no problem there, okay? So call us at 727-800-2202. And if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you get notifications. We always have these videos coming out. We're always here to help you out. Give us a call. Catch you on the water.